Yeah, I know my mic and my shirt have hair all over them, Michael. I know. I'm aware. I've got dog hair everywhere. It's because I pet my dog a ton. She is the most adorable dog in the whole wide world. For those of you that have not seen her, eventually I'll show you a picture. But let's go ahead and get started. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. It looks like just confirming here with Restream. We are live. Perfect. Almost ready. Almost. And we are live. Awesome. All right. So, like I said, today we are going to be covering prompting. So I hope everyone's having a wonderful Friday. I know, like I was saying earlier, I am absolutely having a great Friday. Got to go out and meet with a business owner that has some pretty unique needs. They're in the rubber industry, and they've been operating for about 34 years as of next month. And they have no CRM or AI or technology whatsoever. In fact, when I asked the owner if he ever uses Excel or Word, he was like, I have no idea how to use that. I know how to surf the internet on the computer, and that's it. So they are doing everything on paper. So they are a prime candidate for what I do, which is augmentation and or replacement of human capital and operational efficiency improvement through the use of AI. So that was a super cool meeting. Ended up being about 3 hours long, which was pretty impressive. But I definitely think we can help that business owner. So I'm working on a couple cool projects while we get started here. I'll just give you guys a quick update. One of the things that I'm working on is converting myself to an AI. So I have exported all of my iMessage, WhatsApp, iCloud, and a variety of other things, and have am turning those into some pretty neat AI implementations, with the idea being that I will be able to create social posts and other content for like scripts and things like that that use my natural tone of voice. So I'm also exporting my entire YouTube channel, consolidating all of that data and getting it prepared for import into an AI. Now, the crazy thing is that my entire life, if I look at my history of over 20 years of using technology and essentially recording things, whether it be using Facebook, MySpace, iMessage, iPhones, Androids, I never throw anything away. My total cumulative conversation size is about 44 megabytes. That is very small in comparison to what I was expecting, but pretty cool to learn about anyways, just because it gives me a little bit of a unique perspective on, how much, I guess, impact we make in digital space. So it's been pretty interesting to look at that. I also have over 75,000 photos, which I was 44 megabytes, Anna, 44 megabytes, not gigabytes. So very, very small. But gives you a little bit of an idea of the impact that you make on the world, that I fit on. Me personally, I fit on less than one CD-ROM. I fit on less than one iOmega flash drive, or iOmega zip drive, which is the old 100 megabyte discs. For those of you, yeah, I'm basically a floppy. It's kind of wild, but yeah, without further ado, we will go ahead and get started. So today we're going to talk about bad AI prompts versus good AI prompts. There's a lot of you out there, unfortunately, or a lot of people out there in general, that try their hand at using AI and have a really bad experience. I was at a restaurant the other day and I was listening to a gentleman talk to his significant other, and he was telling her how bad ChatGPT was. And I couldn't help but surmise from the conversation that it really wasn't ChatGPT that was bad. It was actually more his prompting techniques. Thank you, Eric, for saying I'm at least 1 gigabyte in your book. I appreciate that. Yes, Lonnie, I am older than I look. It's all good. I have gray and white hairs in my beard, which is why I shave it on a regular basis, and I have no hair on the top of my head. So I am a lot older than I look. Sometimes I still get carded. It makes me feel very special, but then I realize that they carded the guy who's like 75, and I feel less special. But anyways, without further ado, today is presented by me, Mario Aldayuz. I am, for those of you who don't know me, I am an entrepreneur, educator, and founder of Legendary Academy. Um, my core message for today is AI is only as strong as or only as smart as the instructions you give it. And that is very true, right? Because, a lot of people that get frustrated with AI, especially with like platforms like Lovable, and I see this all the time because I'm part of a ton of community groups. People are like, oh, Lovable is terrible, or High Levels AI is horrible, right? Bev is absolutely correct in her statement, like the old garbage in, garbage out. It's absolutely correct in saying that, because of poor prompting skills. And we're going to get into what defines a good prompt. We're going to go through some bad prompts, some good prompts, some different prompting styles. And we're going to talk about those different features, as well as actually do some real use cases and see what the difference is in a good prompt versus a bad prompt. We're going to do that in ChatGPT and in Lovable. So we have some real world examples that you can wrap your fingers around. But I want to talk about what is an AI prompt, right? Because everyone says prompt this, prompt that. A prompt is the steering wheel of AI. It is how we ask AI questions, how we ask AI to generate content, and the instructions we give it. It's really important that we understand that every day in life we are prompting things. Whether it be we're ordering Chinese food, or are we doing GPS directions? We have a variety of different things that we do in our daily lives. And I always give this example, right? So, ordering food is a really important one. If I say, I would like some food, please, at the bar, or I would like a draft beer at the bar. Oftentimes we will get an unexpected result, right? I personally don't like sour cream or chicken Alfredo. So those are two of like my kryptonite foods that I refuse to touch. Well, I guess three would be sour cream, mayonnaise, and chicken Alfredo. Three things that I just refuse to touch with a 10-foot pole. And if I were to go to a restaurant and ask them to serve me food, especially like a Mexican restaurant, for example, I just said, serve me some food. Chances are it would probably come out with, you guessed it, sour cream. If I went to a McDonald's or a burger joint and asked them for some food, chances are it would come out with mayonnaise, another one of my kryptonites, wouldn't be able to eat it. If I went to an Italian restaurant, same thing. They'd probably serve me chicken Alfredo because everyone loves chicken Alfredo. If I say in my GPS, take me somewhere nice, or if I say, let's go to a restaurant, what if it took me to a restaurant on the east side, which is, 45 minutes away? That's not what I wanted. I want a restaurant locally. But I would say probably my biggest example is drop a 2 in the chat if you have kids. If you have children, drop a 2 in the chat. All right, we have a couple of you that have children. I know a couple of you for sure that have children because I have actually seen or met your children. So Danny, you don't have, oh, that's wrong, Danny Thompson. You should rename yourself other Danny Thompson. I was like, what? She doesn't have kids. I would know. Um, that was actually really funny. That gave me a minor heart attack when Danny Thompson number two said that they had kids because I was like, Danny Thompson number one, sure as heck, has no children. But this is the best example that I give it is let's say that you have a young child who is, let's remember back to those of you that have had toddlers, right at the point where they start to understand, natural human language and they start being responsible for doing chores. Let's say that you told them to go clean their room, right? And when you said go clean your room, the child walks into the room and looks around and says, Mom, my room is clean. Or Dad, my room is clean. And you're like, no, it's not clean. It's absolutely not clean. You didn't do A, B, C, pick up your clothes. You didn't take your water cups downstairs. You didn't clean off your nightstand. You didn't make your bed, right? These are all examples of prompting in a lot of ways because if you just tell the child to go clean their room, you have no idea what you're going to get in return, right? Because telling someone to go clean their room that's never cleaned their room before, and you have to remember, AI essentially resets itself every new conversation. So telling someone like a child or AI to do something without context and without important details really misses the mark in terms of it being able to predict. Because again, like we've talked about previously, AI is predictive modeling. Um, AI is unable to adequately predict what you want because the randomness is too great. So that is what a prompt is. It's very similar to telling a child to go clean their room, or if you tell a child to go eat some food, well, what's that child going to do? It's going to go eat candy and cookies and all the things that make that child happy. They're not going to eat their vegetables, right? You have to be very articulate and very specific when you're doing things like prompting. So, what makes a prompt bad? Okay, now this is the reason I covered bad versus good first, is because bad is a lot easier for people to relate to. Because to be honest with you, a lot of people have very bad prompting skills. It's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing to be sad about. There's ways to improve your prompting skills, and you have to have a little bit of creativity. You have to have a little bit of mental exercise in terms of using the right adjectives and things like that to be able to prompt effectively. So some of the things that make up a bad prompt are prompts being too vague, right? So saying things like, serve me some food, go clean your room, right? A variety of different things. Context, right? What room? What kind of restaurant am I in? Do I want a soda with that? Do I want French fries, right? Missing context around the situation or saying things like context. An example of context in the restaurant world would be things like I'm lactose intolerant or I'm gluten free or I have a tomato allergy. All of those things are important context to include when you're ordering food because that's going to change the way that the order is placed and the food comes out. No goal or outcome is a big one, right? If you tell AI nebulously to create a social post, AI doesn't know what kind of social post you want. It doesn't understand a variety of things about the social posting that you're looking to do. You don't have a goal or outcome in terms of how you want that text displayed. So AI might just give you a picture. It might give you a PDF. Who knows? And what you're doing is you're assuming that AI knows what you mean. AI is not human yet. AI is not capable of understanding um, the information that you don't give it. It can't make assumptions in the way that A human might make assumptions. It can't read your body language yet. Um, yeah, exactly, Bev. It's like telling someone to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and they have no idea where to start or even where to get the bread, right? Because if I tell someone in my kitchen, and I've done this before, I'm, really bad about it at things like dinner parties, where I'll tell someone, "Hey, grab me a plate." And they just look at me with this blank stare. Like, where am I supposed to get the plate from? What kind of plate? Do you need a serving plate? Do you need a side plate? Do you need a dinner plate? What kind of plate do you want, right? So a lot of times we give AI bad information or not enough information. So it is especially common that people will say things like write a marketing post or write a social post. And that's not how we need to be prompting AI. That's just not an effective method for AI prompting. What typically goes wrong is we don't have an audience. We don't have a tone because tone is very important. Otherwise, AI makes assumptions about our tone. No platform, no substance, right? No initial foundation that needs to be given to the AI, and ultimately no goal. Okay. So we've talked about a lot about what's bad about prompting. Now let's talk about what's good about prompting. And prompting, again, ladies and gentlemen, is not rocket science. It's not hard. And we do this in our everyday lives, especially all of you that dropped a two in the chat that have children. You do prompting on a regular basis. And a lot of people often forget that they need to treat AI like a toddler every single time they communicate it with it. So what makes a good prompt, right? A good prompt is context, role, goal, and constraints. So that is, who is this for? Who should the AI act as? What is the desired outcome? And then ultimately the length, tone, and format. When I write a blog post, my prompt is generally speaking about a paragraph long to write a 2 or 3 paragraph blog post. It's actually kind of funny because I have to give it all of the context and details. Now, it still saves me the time of having to do the editing and having to come up with the different structure and the skeleton and all those different things. But it's very common that a good prompt is going to be a lot longer than you think it is. And people oftentimes say, oh, the longer the prompt, the worse the inputs are, right? To the AI. And that's actually inaccurate. That's a common misconception. The longer the prompt actually can often mean the better the outputs will be, as long as you avoid things like conflicting information, as long as you avoid things like different statements that are contradictory or different guidance throughout the prompt. Danny said it also needs to be a bit more structured. That's absolutely correct. You want to make sure that your structure is relatively coherent. Because if you write a totally garbled prompt, the AI is going to jump around and have to kind of yo-yo mentally. If you think of the AI as a human brain, it kind of has to yo-yo mentally if your prompt isn't structured properly. So you always want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 context, role, goal, constraints. So an example of a good prompt is you are a marketing coach. So we've set the context. Write a friendly LinkedIn post for small business owners explaining why consistent follow-up matters. So we said the role, we said for small business owners, and we set a goal. Now we're going to set some constraints. Keep it under 150 words and include one clear call to action. That is absolutely the most important piece. Otherwise, sometimes you'll get 2 sentences. Sometimes you'll get 25 paragraphs. What AI do you use for coming up with content pillars and social media posts? From Ryan Williams. Typically, I use Claude for that. I prefer Claude's writing style. It's a little bit less heavy on the EM dashes. a little bit better at speaking in human form. You have some advanced styles that you can feed Claude. So Claude has things like concise mode. It has a variety of different styles that you can use in Claude. So that's why I prefer Claude for content pillars and social posts. Some general stuff I will use ChatGPT for. If it's just a really quick things like a recap of a summary of a meeting or something like that, I will use ChatGPT. But generally speaking, for content and content development, I do use Claude. So let's do some side-by-side examples. A bad example of a prompt, right, is things like write an email, write a social post, create a blog post, order me some food. And actually, my AI can order food, which is pretty cool. I have an MCP for that. So for those of you that were on the MCP call last week or on Wednesday, I have an MCP for that. It's pretty awesome. I've been working on it for a while, but it is able to order food. I also have MCPs for a variety of different things. If I don't specifically instruct the MCP to do things the way that I want them to, though, the MCP and AI will go off the rails. And if I tell the AI order me food, it could order me food from gosh knows where, and gosh knows what kind of food. It may be Campbell's soup. It may be the most expensive meal I've ever ordered. It could be a variety of different things. So that's why context and goals and things like that are, yes, that's why the duplicated Chick-fil-A happened. It's why I haven't used it since. I need to fine tune a couple things. We had a situation where I gave it a bad prompt and I told it to order me some Chick-fil-A and it ordered me, let's say like 8 chicken sandwiches, 48 nuggets, 4 sodas, and 2 spicy chicken sandwiches. And what I really, in reality, wanted was 1 chicken sandwich, 1 spicy chicken, and one chicken nuggets for my dog, of course. But yes, the cost of the bad prompt was I got a ridiculous amount of Chick-fil-A. When Danny brought up the Chick-fil-A to my office, I was like, why is it the size of a suitcase? And she was like, I don't know, you ordered this. And I was like, no, I didn't. And I was like, oh, that's why. So, examples of a bad prompt, write an email. Examples of a good prompt. You are an email copywriter. Write a short follow-up email to a warm lead context who booked a demo context but did not show up. Friendly tone, one clear next step, goals and constraints. So again, we have to provide context, role, goals, and constraints. Example 2 is this isn't working, fix it. If you said this to a mechanic, my car isn't working, fix it, you'd walk out with a $3,000 car bill from a $150 oil change or a flat tire. Why? Because the mechanic doesn't know what it needs to fix or what they need to fix. So they will absolutely just go on a streak of just fixing things because they see that it's wrong, but maybe that's not what you intended, or maybe that's not what was really broken. Maybe they're investigating ghosts because they think that when you say it's not working, fix it, that you mean that your car won't turn on. So what's the first thing they do? They try and turn your car on. There's a variety of different things, right? So you want to say you are a technical support assistant. Here is the error message and what I expect to happen. Explain what went wrong and suggest next steps, right? So we're giving it its role, we're giving it its context, we're giving it goals, and we're giving it constraints. So all of those things are absolutely critical when it comes to prompting AI. Here's why AI struggles with bad prompts. Because a lot of people say, oh, well, AI should be able to understand what I'm talking about. AI should be able to, you know, do whatever I'm telling it to do naturally. If AI doesn't read your mind which it doesn't. AI doesn't know your business unless you tell it, because AI is, again, contextually not aware of anything previous to your conversation, right? So if your AI has context because you've given it some historical information, it's able to better predict the information. And AI follows instructions very literally. If you tell AI to build you a house, AI will 100% attempt to build you a house. But what if you meant a tree house or a toy house or a doll house? There's all kinds of different houses that you may want built. Without specificity, AI will follow to its best capacity the literal instructions that you give it. AI is like a very fast intern, smart, but needs clear direction. AI is very book smart. It understands way more than any of us in the world could potentially understand. The problem is because it lacks context, role, and is essentially a blank model when you start talking to it, the AI is unable to effectively predict what you want without the goals and the constraints and the roles and the expectations and everything else. So, a prompt framework that anyone can use, and here is an example. I would recommend taking a screenshot of this. Here is an example of what our prompt framework that anyone can use is, which is role, context, task, constraints, right? So, you are a help me for the output should be and formatted as. This is the exact framework that I use in almost every single prompt that I write with ChatGPT or Claude or Cursor or any of these other AI platforms. This is almost the exact format that I write those prompts in every single time. Why? Because I need the AI to understand what they're doing, why they're doing it, what they should be doing, and then the format that they want that I want the output in. Because sometimes, like especially if I'm vibe coding, right? A lot of times, especially if I'm vibe coding, I don't want the AI to take actions. In fact, I want the AI just to give me information. And if I don't tell it to just give me information and I let it just run wild, I'll wake up with half an application built in the wrong direction. It's happened before. Again, these are all things that I've learned in my history of using AI is that role, context, task constraints are absolutely critical in the prompting process. So that's what makes a good AI prompt. Now let's talk about some real world use cases, right? You get better marketing copy, cleaner automation logic. You save yourself from an absurd amount of Chick-fil-A. I don't even want to look at my Uber Eats receipt for how expensive that was because I'm pretty sure it was over $150 in Chick-fil-A. You get more accurate vibe coding help, faster brainstorming, and less frustration. Some common prompting mistakes to avoid is treating AI like Google, asking multiple unrelated questions at once. Again, that goes back to what we talked about with contradictory statements and things like that. Leaving out important details or overcomplicating things too early. Remember, like Danny said in her earlier statement about having a structure to the prompt and going back to this structure right here. This structure is important because it helps the AI to compound from the beginning of telling it what it is to the output format you want at the end and all of the toppings between, right? So you want to make sure that you're using this style of format as much as possible when you are prompting. That's why you don't want to overcomplicate too early. So before we get into actually some examples of building things, and I take a couple questions, um, some closing thoughts are that if you want better answers from AI, start by asking better questions. This is absolutely correct. You don't, when you're interrogating a suspect as a police officer or you're asking a question of someone of how they completed a task, You have to be very specific in the detail of the question you ask, right? Otherwise, you may get nebulous or unrelated answers, right? So better prompts always create better results. So I'll take a couple questions here. So let me look in the Q&A really quick and see what we've got in the Q&A, if I can find that. Uh, Looks like we don't have any questions in the Q&A yet. So what questions do you guys have? Okay, so Frank missed capturing 8 and 9. So I will walk back to slide 8, why AI struggles with bad prompts. And then I will skip back to slide 9, which is the framework that anyone can use. And absolutely, I'll start uploading these slide decks to the portal in combination with the video. So I'll go ahead and upload these to Google Drive and share them with everybody. What is too much or too complicated? For example, how do I take something that is too complicated and adjust to use it? So, Sean, a really good example of a prompt that's too complicated is a prompt that includes too many different paths for the AI to take. So I see this a lot when people are building out voice AIs and things like that, is they'll have like a 2,000 word prompt and they'll include the whole menu to a pizza joint or something like that in their AI prompt. That's the example of a bad prompt. Why is that an example of a bad prompt? Because you're giving the AI too much context every time it has to respond, right? So you always want to start with kind of gradual ease into the situation by setting the role and the context. Then you want to get into your little bit more complicated detail bits, maybe some paths, some different options. Then you get into your expected output formats and your constraints. And that's the best length of a prompt. Now, that prompt, again, could be 100 words. That prompt could be 2,000 words. The difference between a bad prompt and a good prompt is a prompt that contradicts itself and a prompt that has too many different options for the AI to select from, or too much contextual information. Because you needed to be able to execute a very specific task, right? Not a bunch of different tasks. Because when you have a bunch of different tasks included in your prompt, and this is especially relevant to conversation AI and voice AI, when you have a prompt that has too many tasks in it, or you give an AI too many tasks in your prompt, the AI is going to have to do its best to predict that information every single time. And um, when it does that, it oftentimes will do what's called hallucinate, right? So drop a 3 in the chat if you've ever heard the term hallucination before in terms of AI, right? All right, we got a couple people. For sure. So AI hallucinations are predictions that go what I call out of band. Okay. So a common prediction is X plus Y equals Z, right? Or A plus B equals C. That's a common prediction, right? When you have A plus B parentheses times C minus Y plus X equals Z to the square, right? That style of prompt is going to cause you a lot of problems because there's too many different variables and factors in the prompt. So that's what a long prompt means. Or that's what I mean by a long prompt is it's not exactly the length of the prompt or the complexity of the prompt from that standpoint. It's more so the complications or the mechanics within the prompt that need to be adjusted. I typically don't use AI to help me come up with prompts. I've gotten pretty good at writing those prompts myself. A lot of times, what I do is I write them out in user stories and acceptance criteria, and then I'll have AI condense it into a coherent prompt. So it really kind of depends on the use case to answer your question, Dustin. So Melissa, best AI to use for prompting the AI, conversational AI in high level. Actually, that's High Level's native prompt, is actually the best one to use when building out. High Level's native prompt is pretty amazing. You can add some sauce on top of that, but you have to remember that High Level's AI tool is not necessarily um, designed to perform a bunch of complex actions. You need a third-party AI system if you want more complex actions inside of your voice AI platforms like Assistable or Thinker or Retell or Vappy. Different platforms like those are capable of handling much more complex prompts than High Level's native internal prompt. With agents, would it be better to direct the AI to a knowledge base to reduce the prompt length? Absolutely. To answer Chris Hunt's question, it is absolutely very important that you understand the difference between what belongs in a prompt and what belongs in a knowledge base. So a prompt is something that you need for in every single immediate answer, right? So if someone calls in, my prompt structure would be something like, when you answer the call, do A, B, and C. Ask them first name, last name, and email address, and what the nature of their query is. Handle the call with care and compassion. And then, should you need additional information or should they have questions, use your knowledge base functions. Everything that is not a common like action. So to answer Alex's question, the pizza menu would live in the knowledge base, not the prompt. That's absolutely correct. Because when someone says, I'd like to order a pizza, what kind of toppings do you have? The AI is not going to get the what kind of toppings do you have. They're not going to say, hello, what kind of toppings do you have? Thank you, what kind of toppings do you have? Where are you located? What kind of toppings do you have? Right? So the AI is not going to get this where what kind of toppings do you have question every single time, meaning that it is a infrequent asked question, and that's what you put in your knowledge base. Danny, go ahead. You raised your hand.
I was just saying
You're on
that,
mute.
am I still on mute? Oh,
Whoops, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Maybe it's my up.
I can hear
Hold on a
you.
second. That's probably my computer. Bear with me a second. That would be why my soundbar is not connected. Um, whoop. All right, Danny, now I can hear you.
Um, So whenever I use the AI to help me create my prompts, because I am not the best at it, I oftentimes ask it to take on the experience of an expert prompt engineer,
Yep.
and kind of give it the output that I'm looking for. The one big thing that I have found to be the most helpful across all my AI use is making sure to put in, like, ask for clarification prior to proceeding, especially if you're looking at something that
Yes.
takes up credits. It helps me save a lot of back and forth and a lot of irritation. So that is my personal setup.
Yeah, so and let's give some practical examples of what this looks like. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. So let me share my screen. All right, we are in Lovable. So I want to switch to ChatGPT, and I'm going to say, we're going to use the exact example, right? Write me a social post. Then I'm going to open a new tab. You are, let's go to a new GPT and let's do this. You are an expert in social media and AI prompting. I would like to write a social media post for my community that is predominantly AI users, new AI users, on how to write an AI prompt. please write the prompt in short to medium length using emojis where relevant and return the post in Markdown format via Canvas so that I may copy and paste the prompt. So let's look at the first one while this one's generating. Most people think AI is about prompts. It's not. AI is about systems. Now it knows this because I was previously doing a social post thing about this. And it's listening to what I'm saying secretly on my phone. But AI knows, this is what a social media post could look like. But to be honest, this social media post is really long. This isn't what I want in my social media post. What I want in my social media post is some basic information using emojis and more like pretty things. So this is something I could actually post in the group, right? That would be a valuable thing for people to use versus this, which just says, turn ideas into products, and you don't need to be a developer, you don't need to be technical. That's what I teach, that's what I build, that's the vibe. This has nothing to do with what I wanted my output to be, which is exactly this, talking about prompt formulas, examples of a good prompt, examples of a bad prompt. Alex Hayer's asking for conversational AI and GHL, how would you have it reference a knowledge base there for a business? What I would do is I would have the knowledge base full of, generally speaking, I use a Google Doc with information in the Google Doc around how the business operates, what the address is, what style of services they offer. What I always tell people is only include in your knowledge base answers to the questions people are asking. Don't include your entire website or your entire knowledge base or your entire blog, post setup inside of your knowledge base, because chances are, if you're an HVAC company, people aren't going to ask, what's the freezing point of an air conditioner? Right? They're going to say, my air conditioner is frozen. When can you service it? They're going to ask questions like, my air conditioner isn't outputting heat, or my heating unit isn't outputting heat. When can you come troubleshoot it? Or they're going to ask, how often should I service my air conditioner? Things like that. But they're not going to ask mundane questions that you're using for SEO purposes or AEO purposes in your blog system. Um, is there a recommended structure to when you want to go deeper with a prompt, a follow-up prompt? Um, yes. So it always follows the same logic and architecture. The difference is there's more context in the center, right? So there's more constraints and there's more context. Now you have to be very careful with constraints because you can't have contradictory constraints. That's a common pitfall for people. Context, the more context you give the AI, the better prediction it will make. Because again, ladies and gentlemen, AI is, at the end of the day, a predictive model, right? So it is the best statistician in the world using the tokens that you give it in the context that you give it to provide a predictive generative answer or a reasoned answer, because AI, when it reasons with itself, is making its own internal predictions. Um, and that's the best way to make sure, is just to include additional context. So Ryan's question was, if we're going to take a ton of calls and run them through AI to come up with questions and answers, what methods would you use? I would use retrieval augmented generation, depending, Ryan, on who you're doing this for. I actually already set this up for you guys. So all you would need to do is activate it, and it can run all your calls through AI to analyze the questions. But generally what I do is I use a chunking strategy. So I'll have the AI generate question and answer pairs from each phone call. and then I'll have AI analyze all of the question and answer pairs that I've given it and have it chunk that down and whittle it down into summations and or reduce, kind of like boiling down stew or making a sauce, a reduction sauce or something like that, right? You put everything in the pot and then you boil it down, making a stock, for example. But I've set this up for a lot of people, and I'm happy to work with you, Ryan, to set that up for you as well. If you want to create an agent or a gem, what type of prompt formula would you recommend? So the same thing, right? When you want to create an agent or a gem or an assistant or a gem, you want to include context about different things related to what you're, trying to do, what its goals are, what it's capable of doing, things like that. You want to include what I call boundaries and guardrails. So, a really important facet of prompting is being able to include boundaries and guardrails, left and right, and up and down lateral limits, or lateral or vertical limits that give the AI what it is and is not allowed to do, and what it should and shouldn't do. So I include more information for gems and assistants in the knowledge base and file uploads than I do in the prompt itself. My prompts for agents and gems are oftentimes relatively simple. Now, there are some more complex prompts. For example, the analysis of phone calls and grading. Like I have a service that I offer for sales and medical facilities, predominantly sales companies and medical facilities, where I actually create an AI system that, which I can actually probably show you a little bit of. Give me 1 second. API Alibot. It's gonna make me log in. Bear with me 1 second, guys. I'll get logged in and I'll show you what this looks like. I got tons of security on my end. All the security. All right, so let me resume my screen share. And a common or what I'd use for Facebook person, content syndication. Let me find the specific one. That's it's this one right here. So this is an example of what's called an N8N scenario. N8N is like Zapier and Make. The important thing that I want to show you guys is this is the length of my prompt per assistant, right? So I set the uh, role of the AI. I give it context, right? So you're a QA evaluator. You're grading my Pest Pros CSR sales calls against the rubric. I give it context around what the question is or what the grading information is. And I give it how I want it to return my outputs and constraints that I provide it. So what happens is a sales call is fed into the beginning of this scenario right here. The transcript is created. It's then evaluated against each one of these different steps. Now, you're absolutely right. I could have combined all of these into one agent or one step, but what I found is that it became a lot more inaccurate and it started hallucinating on a regular basis. My initial scenario was actually one AI card in line with these inputs. This adding of additional AI cards and better contextual information associated with each specific question catapulted the results into the stratosphere from an accuracy standpoint. What do you think the best conversational AI is for service-based businesses to use for after-hours calls and chats? Is high level robust enough for this, or do you have additional recommendations? So Erica is asking the question of what conversational AI is best. Me personally, I prefer CloseBot for my conversational AI aspect. And then I use Retail AI or Thinker for my actual like voice AI. But in terms of text AI, and I know CloseBot is planning on releasing voice AI sometime in the future. There is nobody better than Closebot when it comes to voice AI. I mean, conversation AI, like text message and chat AIs. It's absolutely not, there's literally no comparison. They are just absolutely the best. Retail takes a little while to get used to. Thinker is a good option. Assistable is a good option. You have kind of a variety of vendors you can pick from for voice AI specifically. But I use Retail AI, which is directly to the source because most of the other AI vendors are all based on retail. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, what lingering questions do we have? We've answered about 15 questions so far, plus my lovely moderators. Thank you, Coach Kara and Danny Thompson, for being lovely moderators today. I really appreciate it. What other questions do we have? What are good places to learn N8N? Right here is a great place to learn N8N. We are actually going to start doing some training on N8N. So I will be teaching basics of N8N in the coming week. We'll get into automations in general. So we'll talk about how N8N works, how things like Zapier, Make, all of these different platforms work, what their purposes are, what APIs are, and then we'll actually get into the nitty-gritty of using N8N, Zapier, and Make so that everyone gets a well-rounded experience around how to use automation platforms. But all right, guys, we have about 7 minutes left until the top of the hour. So I'm going to give you guys back some time on your evening, on your Friday. Just to remember to a reminder that the replays are available in the coaching section of the community portal. So if you go into the community portal under replays on the left-hand side, you'll find all of the replays as they get posted. If you have questions, ask them during the week in the community. Just another reminder, I do office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then we have this class 3 times a week. So I appreciate all of you showing up today. Dustin, there is an invite for office hours. It is in the community under the events tab. Awesome, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good rest of your day. Melinda, shoot me an email. I'll drop you my email right now. There you go, Melinda. There is my email address. Feel free to shoot me an email and I'll help you get into the community.